Hi, Eric Linask here. We're in Miami, Florida for ITEXPO Miami 2013. And with us in the studio today is Mike McBride from Huawei. Mike, thanks for joining me.
My pleasure.
In addition to your role at Huawei, today you're actually here in two capacities, also representing the ONF. So maybe start by telling us a little bit about what is the ONF and what does the association do?
Sure, yeah. So ONF is the Open Networking Foundation. It's been in existence for a couple years now, and their whole goal in life is the transformation of networking through the use of software-defined networking, otherwise known as SDN. And they're set up similar to other standards organizations where they have a variety of working groups working on a variety of architectures, but they all form around the OpenFlow protocol. The OpenFlow protocol is the protocol that really started this whole SDN movement. There's been a variety of protocols prior to OpenFlow, but OpenFlow was really the one that was adopted by Google and others, and that's why the market is the way that it is today. I'm here today to to work on a panel and to share some thoughts about a little bit more about OpenFlow and Huawei's vision as well.
So you mentioned sort of OpenFlow being the protocol that became adopted and sort of helped lead. So this is the momentum of SDN. What's different about OpenFlow as opposed to some of the preceding protocols that didn't necessarily have as much success?
Well, it's very flexible. It's very simple. And I think probably the key part of it is that this foundation, this ONF, really is the one that adopted it and really made it a successful platform. Dan Pitt and others really made this organization one that can rally behind a protocol and make it acceptable in the marketplace. It's become a organization with over 80 member companies now, and it's become wildly successful. There's people that are involved, companies involved from small startups of just a few employees to large companies like Huawei that have well over 100,000 employees. And so it's, I think it's because it's been so widely adopted and the timing was right. There's a lot of pain points that have been occurring in the network that between the management of the OpenFlow protocol and the timing, I think it's just taken off.
So you mentioned participation in the panel, and Paula Bernier put together a series of fantastic panelists for our SDN pre-con that just wrapped up. Specific to your panel, were there any conclusions that the panelists came to? Any conclusions that as far as what we can look forward to regarding SDN?
Yeah, a couple is one that SDN is real. There's products out there today that's solving problems. There's a couple of the famous examples of, like Google, for instance, who created a new WAN using OpenFlow, and they've been slowly migrating existing traffic to this WAN. They're able to bring that utilization from 30 to 40% up to 100%, so they're able to be extremely efficient with their WAN links. And there's other players as well that have used OpenFlow for traffic steering and other solutions. And so part of that, and that kind of is where I came in and shared during this panel a little bit about Huawei's vision, is that I think one of the conclusions is that for service providers particularly, there's really a need for something like software-defined networking. I mean, the internet's been extremely successful. Our networking has been allowed us to enjoy the internet that we have today. There's a lot of protocols involved to make that happen. Many of us have been working on those protocols for many years, and they work well. But they do work largely in isolation, and they can be difficult to manage. And so service providers, despite the wild popularity of the internet, their revenues are flat to declining, and they need some help. And so we really have been told that by service providers that they envision SDN being able to provide them with the ability to manage their network more efficiently, to be able to quickly offer new services, and to be able to offer those services that their customers want. So I think it will hopefully change the game in the next 3 to 5 years for them to be able to be more profitable.
So I heard a couple of interesting comments during those sessions at the SDN pre-con, and one in particular was really that we've got, like you said, all these apps and services that we want to build and roll out extremely quickly. But also apps and services that need to interoperate with one another and collaborate with one another in order to perform optimally. And one of the things that I thought was very interesting is we've got all these great apps and all these great services, now the network is a problem, and the network is really what's getting in the way.
Exactly. Yeah, that's really been the case. Is the network's really been the slow adopter. You know, on the storage side and the server side, they've become virtualized, and they've waiting for the network to catch up. And there's a lot of solutions that have been going on the network side to do solutions such as in the data center. There's been some overlay proposals and solutions, NVGRE and VXLAN and other overlay solutions, which allow data center to scale better and to be able to perform the VM movement and other responsibilities that they have on the data center side. But they're also difficult to manage, and the hard part is to be able to allow different vendors' equipment, different vendors, different versions of software, operating systems, to all be easily managed. And so I think really that's a key point of what SDN can provide, is the ability to manage all these different solutions and help make the network cool again and be able to not be the bottleneck, but to be part of the solution.
What can we expect out of Huawei with regards to SDN?
Well, primarily on the service provider side, as I mentioned, that's really where a lot of my focus has been. And so what we've done is we fully adopted SDN, particularly the OpenFlow architecture. One thing that's probably unique to us is that we're not threatened by SDN. You would think that a company that has as big as we are, the world's largest telecom equipment provider, would be nervous about SDN, but instead we see it as a pretty neat opportunity to provide some neat solutions for our customers, particularly service provider customers. So being that we have equipment end to end, from mobile phones, we sell millions of mobile phones, all the way up to routers and switches and the largest telecom providers' backbones, and everywhere in between, from optical transfer networks to fiber access networks to mobile backhaul. There's so many devices, and so in working with customers, we're hearing that, we would really like to see these environments be able to be easily manageable, because there's so many devices, it's hard to keep track of them all, it's hard to program them, and there's so many different OSs, like I mentioned. And it would be nice to be able to just centrally manage these devices. If they need to be upgraded to a new service, then it'd be much easier to do it through software-defined networking. So what we envision and what we're developing is an end-to-end architecture that allows SDN to be able to be controlled by task-specific controllers, centrally orchestrated, and be able to provide the southbound direction to the hardware, as well as be able to provide the applications, really the intelligence that they want out of the network.
So looking at it from the end user perspective, what's the end game? What is the end user going to see or feel as a result of adoption of SDN?
Well, from a service provider perspective, one of their customers is our content delivery networks. That's one of their end users, and so one of their customers. And so, content delivery network providers are looking to service providers to be able to provide more information as to what's available. So service providers would be able to see more revenue opportunity, more opportunity to provide better user experience by providing a view of their network to content delivery networks. Here's, I'm OpenFlow capable, or I'm not OpenFlow capable. Here's the load or bandwidth on my network. Here's premium services that are available, and you can choose dynamically what paths you want for certain flows on a turn of a dime. And so I think by allowing more flexibility to content providers, the end user experience will be much more enjoyable.
Well, I think regardless of the service that you're looking at these days, that's what it always comes down to, is the user experience.
Yep, I agree.
Excellent. Well, Mike, thank you so much for joining me. Thanks for joining us on the SDN panels.
You got it. Thanks for having me.